Good Wednesday morning and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft in the studios of 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. As always, joining me today from her home studio is Ronnie Dahl.
Hey, Tyler, how are you? Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, happy Wednesday to you. I'm doing well. How are you?
You know, it seems like the week is already flying by.
It does. Yeah, it really does.
But with that, though, we've had a couple great shows here in the first part of 2021, and we'll keep continuing the shows as well. We had some good guests yesterday, but like you said, our apologies to Bo with the Bowling Association because we ran a little bit long with Charlie LaDuff. It was the first time we had him on the show and a great conversation with him. But again, so many of these businesses continue to be hurt by this pandemic. And, you know, we forget about some of the impact of the businesses that were allowed to reopen because you think, oh, well, they're open. But even with, reduced capacity, they're still being hurt. And as he was saying yesterday, for some of the bowling alleys, they didn't even bother to reopen because of the expense of reopening. And there's been a lot of confusion in some of these orders. Could they continue the leagues? Could they not continue the leagues? So we are definitely still starting off 2021 struggling for so many of these businesses here in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, these businesses still continuing to suffer. Of course, that means that those that work for these businesses are also, in many cases, continuing to suffer. And much like we've seen in other sectors of business, some businesses that have been able to reopen at a partial capacity or with heavy restrictions in place have opted not to do so because it simply isn't going to be worth their time, their energy, and money. And unfortunately for the bowling industry here in the state of Michigan, the current regulations, while they do allow them to be open at a certain capacity and with many regulations in place, are not conducive to their business model. So all the more reason why this more recent relief for some of these businesses at the state level with all these grants is certainly going to be welcome so that they can continue to operate their business while they're inoperable due to COVID-19. But a continued struggle is going to be in place as we're still several months away from being out of this pandemic.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting too when we get into the springtime and there is enough vaccinations going around to try to get that herd immunity that they keep talking about. But even for those that are getting the vaccination, they're still having to wear a mask and keep that 6-foot social distance rule in place as well. And I wonder if that's going to continue into the summer and beyond the summer as well.
Yeah, it very well might because of the rate that we're getting these vaccines out to the public because COVID-19 cases are still such a problem across the country, certainly across the state here in Michigan, although numbers are trending downward somewhat. Getting those vaccines out at a slower rate means that we're going to slow the entire process unless we get some of that speed back later on in the process of distributing this vaccine. That could mean that it is well into the summer before some of these businesses are able to go back to almost or full capacity at any point, which is going to definitely continue to hurt their pocketbooks and hurt their futures as operating businesses.
So since we're talking about that and you just touched on it, Michigan's COVID vaccination rate is among the worst in the nation right now. So we'll jump into the day's headlines with that. Michigan has the 6th worst COVID-19 vaccination rate in the country. That's according to federal data that was released this week. And the state had 982 per 100,000 people initiating vaccination or getting their first dose of the available 2-dose vaccines. That was through Monday. It's according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Now, the rate was better only than Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Arizona, and Kansas. State health officials, though, argue the CDC's data is lagging behind Michigan's. It's incorrect. They say that Michigan's numbers show about 140,000 doses have been administered through Monday compared with the CDC's tracker. So the State Hospital Association is also saying that they do expect the rate is going to improve because healthcare workers, the holidays are over, but also as more of those healthcare workers see no or minimal side effects from the first vaccinated frontline workers, and some of those efforts start to ramp up. And I know Oakland County has opened up some drive-through services for the vaccination for its frontline workers. So in Oakland County, it seems, at least we seem to be doing okay on our vaccination numbers.
Yeah, things seem to be going well so far here in Oakland County. Things looking up in other places as well, as this most recent surge of COVID-19 cases is slowly but surely reducing. Of course, we don't have the numbers just yet from the recent holiday season with the Christmas and the end of the year holiday, certainly bringing a lot of people to travel within the state of Michigan and outside of Michigan to visit with family, friends, and other loved ones. So that could be a little bit of a hiccup potentially. But if that is not a severe situation, and really if there's not much of an increase in cases, which I would think would be unlikely to be a scenario, this could be some momentum for getting our state's vaccination process back on track.
Yeah, maybe this week we can try to get Dave Coulter on. I know that we were trying prior to the holidays to get him or someone from the health department on, and they were busy. Keep in mind too, they were just receiving the vaccine, so there are a lot of logistics that go into that. So maybe we can try to get him on this week to talk a little bit more about that. Meanwhile, 300 members of the Michigan National Guard have now received their COVID vaccine. The first round of the individuals for the Michigan National Guard to get their shots are members of the testing teams. And the vaccinations were administered by the National Guard members who have also been supporting Michigan healthcare agencies. National Guard is expected to receive 20% of the Department of Defense's COVID-19 vaccinations. The receipt of the immunization is on a volunteer basis right now. And the Michigan National Guard vaccination plan is similar to the plan for civilians. So to go first to their frontline healthcare workers, assisting on some of these COVID-19 rollout plans in the local health departments. Then it will go to other members of the Guard that cannot work remotely. So we are starting to see it here in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, and the National Guard usually would play a critical role in this element of the pandemic response. And so getting these vaccinations to those on the front lines of the National Guard, and then you can eventually get it further down the line. You have hundreds upon thousands of more people that can help the process of getting the vaccinations out to the general public, out to the general public's frontline workers, those in at-risk communities and populations a lot more efficiently, especially with people with medical backgrounds and expertise in the National Guard that can maybe help to bridge some of those gaps that have been troubling because so much of the healthcare community has been focused on a large-scale number of COVID-19 cases as of late, which has, as we've spoken ad nauseum about this morning, been a cause for delays in the process of vaccinating Michiganders.
So I like this next story. Kid Rock, he donates $100,000 to help restaurants and gyms and other small businesses. Dave Portnoy, he is a social media celebrity and he's the founder of the Barstool Sports. It's a sports blog and digital media company. He created a relief fund, and it was fueled with donations, including $500,000 of his own money to help small businesses nationwide impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. So it's the same fund that Kid Rock is helping to support. He tweeted that he made a $100,000 donation to the fund. His tweet, "This is the America I love. Put me down for $100K." And he went on to say, "I only post this in hopes others are as blessed as me may be moved to help out." Champ's Pub in downtown Brighton is one of a handful of local restaurants and businesses that have been helped through this fund. And just over 2 weeks, more than $18 million $18 million has been raised. And one of the rules for applying is that businesses must still be paying its employees. You also have to submit what you need the money for. And the fund is open to gyms, restaurants, bars, and other small businesses. This is one of the great things about this pandemic. So many people stepping in to help. And do you listen or watch Barstool Sports at all, Tyler?
From a distance. The Barstool Sports, it's kind of a situation where you either like them or you don't. I'm in the camp of generally I don't care for them. Certain personalities, I enjoy their commentary. Big Cat is one of their personalities that I do enjoy his commentary on sports. Other people that have been in the Barstool family of commentators before, like Pat McAfee, I really admire them. But generally, I'm not a big fan of Barstool Sports. That being said, what they're doing here for these small businesses to help them out in a really tough situation is remarkable. It's incredibly admirable. It's definitely having an impact on these businesses. It's changing people's lives. And so they should absolutely be applauded for that. Those that are donating to them, like Kid Rock, should be applauded for that. And we can put aside any other differences that we may have with that organization or with certain individuals, because they are helping people out and they are changing people's lives in a time that they're finding they're really struggling across the board, all throughout Michigan and all throughout the U.S.
Yeah, and we keep hearing about so many of these grants that are being made available for the restaurants, the bars, and some of these other small businesses. And so I think it gives the perception to the public that they're all being helped out. But what people don't understand, some of these grants are so hard for these small businesses to actually get, because the need is greater than what is being offered in the help arena. And so it can be really hard for them to get this money. So that's great that this local restaurant is one of the ones that's going to be helped out through this fund. And I think there was a list of like 3 or 4 other local businesses as well. And so if you want to read more about that story, if you go to our civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus, that's where we list the latest headlines, but also there's a link to the full story, which was in today's free press, to talk a little bit about that. Also at the top of the page there on civiccentertv.com, at the top of the coronavirus page, you'll see direct links to some of the other organizations, such as the CDC, the state of Michigan. If you want to track those numbers of the vaccine, you'll find that through the state of Michigan's website. We also have direct links to Oakland County, as well as our local municipalities as well. So we try to make it all quick and easy for you there, so that you could try to get the information yourself as well and track those numbers, because we're seeing the difference too from the CDC site and the state of Michigan site. There could be a difference in some of the information that's being reported, so you can go ahead and check it out for yourself, Tyler.
Yep, all that information on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, and we also have more coronavirus-related information on our website on civiccentertv.com/megacast, or you click on the Megacast link, and you can get all the information, of course, about our show each and every day, and watch full interviews, short clips, and all, of course, our entire episodes as well. Every single episode and every single interview is up there.
And so this is the first Wednesday of 2021, and we have a great show ahead for you today. As we've been talking about the vaccine, so much of the conversation in 2021 is going to be about the vaccine. And so we'll be speaking with Lindsay Sikora. She's with the Sikora Law Firm, about the vaccine and some of the legal issues and questions that are coming up already surrounding the vaccine. We'll also be speaking with Alexa Randolph. She's a podcaster for Staying Strong. It's a new year, it's a new you, but their podcast is also focusing on some of the body image and mental health issues surrounding, so many of us, and keeping that conversation going into 2021. So we'll have her on the show, and then coming up in the 11 o'clock hour, the Detroit Free Press, Mick McCabe, talking about high school sports. He'll be with us here on the Megacast. And then I'm excited about the one guest. He's the Legos. Did you play with Legos when you were a kid, Tyler?
I did not passionately, but I did play with it. I did dabble with the Legos, and that is really interesting. I am looking forward to that interview. That's he has a very interesting story. This is really amazing work. I looked some of it up with Legos, and it's extremely creative.
It is incredible, some of the things that he is making. This is an adult. You're never too old for Lego. So that will be in our 11 o'clock hour. And then we will also be checking in with the Berkeley Downtown Development Authority. They have some good things going on in Berkeley to try to get people to continue to shop and, support some of the small businesses there in Berkeley. So a lot to get to on the Wednesday edition of the Oakland County Megacast, and we'll get the show started after this break.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Perry tested positive for COVID-19. Emma was exposed to a friend who's positive. Willa's waiting on test results. After any contact with COVID-19, or if you test positive, stay home for at least 10 days. If you live with others, keep your distance and wear a mask. Help Michigan contain COVID-19. Visit michigan.gov/contain-COVID.
Great to have you with us on the Wednesday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Just as a reminder, you can always catch Tyler and I Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon on civiccentertv.com, Birmingham area municipal access. You can also catch us on Channel 15 if you have Comcast, 99 on AT&T, and you can tune us into the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. We also want to say thank you to the West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce for allowing us to live stream today's edition of the Megacast on their Facebook page. And let's go ahead and get the show started. And while the COVID-19 vaccine definitely is offering a lot of hope, it is also bringing a lot of legal questions surrounding the vaccine. And with us now on the Megacast is Lindsay Sikora. She's the owner of Sikora Law Firm. Great to have you with us here on the Megacast.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
And Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. You as well.
I think for so many of us with the vaccine, a lot of people are so hopeful about the vaccine, but now there are a lot of people that don't want it, even some of the healthcare frontline workers. So the question I think going into 2021 is going to be some of these legal questions, starting off with, can your employer mandate that you get the vaccine?
Yeah, and once the excitement is your initial response, and then you start to think of all of the different nuances that it creates for a business owner. And so the short answer is, it depends. And so there are a lot of things that go into deciding whether or not an employer should mandate a vaccine. But in certain circumstances, yes, they can, and it might be advised that they do. A great place to look for employers is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC. They're really the ones that are setting out the guidance for this, and the ones that are going to be giving us a lot of information as time moves on. And recently in mid-December, they did release some guidelines for employers to look to. And it really involves this idea of a direct threat. That's sort of the test, so to speak, that they're looking at, what does the threat of an unvaccinated person pose in your specific workplace, to your coworkers, to the customers that you service, and the public at large?
Well, and on top of that, too, you wonder not only businesses, but schools. Is it going to be mandated to actually come back into the classroom? Now, right now, it's not approved for the kids 16 and under, but you wonder for the teachers, will they require it for the teachers then?
Yes, and requiring immunizations, especially in public schools, is not something new. It is something that has been going on for over a century in this country, since 1905, with the first Supreme Court case that really upheld this idea that states and government entities can require this immunization. So I would expect that the schools are definitely going to be seeking out advice onto how to handle this, and look into their current practices and what they're currently doing regarding all the immunizations that children receive and their requirements there.
Yeah, but a lot of those requirements are for the kids. What about for the adults? Because right now for the kids, they can't even get the vaccine.
Yeah, and so it's likely that it would be the same idea as employers and employees. So you would want to look to the EEOC, and they're basically having employers look into the risk that it poses for that specific workplace. So the more likely it is that a non-vaccinated person puts people at risk, the better argument that you have as an employer, as a school, to mandate that vaccine. And so you definitely can, as long as you have a plan for what happens next, because there will undoubtedly be individuals that for medical reasons or religious reasons are not able or willing to get the vaccine. And so you need to have a plan in place that meets the Equal Opportunity Commission's requirements as to what to do next.
And I look at this, and while it seems like it's a simple thing, it really isn't. And a lot of it's going to be that legal jargon that is written into some of these situations. Like right now, for the most part, it seems like it's on a voluntary basis, right? Like I can choose to do it or choose not to. But you wonder too, the legality, if you're signing up for some of these vaccines, what if there are problems down the road with your health? And because we don't know, it's a new vaccine. So it opens up all of these legal questions.
Yeah, and so everybody has the right to choose what they feel is best for themselves. And so the employers will have to be careful about what they're mandating, and also make sure that their plan for those who are not going to get the vaccine is not discriminatory and does not violate any of the current, ADA, American Disability Act codes, which really limit an employer for asking a lot of medical related questions. So employers out there, be mindful, if somebody's choosing not to get a vaccine for medical reasons, you might not be entitled for the specifications as to why. And so there are certain things to be mindful of when you're making that plan for a mandate.
Yeah, that's one thing I found very interesting throughout COVID-19 and this crisis, because there are HIPAA rules that are still in place, but yet we've seen it even like in professional sports where they're announcing which players have COVID, which ones don't, or tested positive, or in quarantine. And I find that interesting because I thought due to HIPAA, you wouldn't be able to release that information.
Well, HIPAA is waivable by the individual whose information it is. So, I don't know the specifics with the professional sports, but maybe there's some sort of contract or HIPAA authorization or release that is signed by these players, or individuals or employees that allows an employer to obtain this information and release it. But as of right now, individuals, employers, and the EEOC makes this clear in their guidance, should be very mindful of the confidentiality that goes into who is vaccinated, who is not. The EEOC has indicated from my reading of the guidance that you can ask as an employer if the individual, your employee, is vaccinated, but a lot of detail might not be available because of the ADA requirements. And so you'll want to keep closely that information of your employees to make sure that coworkers and the public, and other staff are not getting a hold of any specificities when it comes to who's vaccinated and why or why not.
And that opens up a whole mess of issues for some of these employers, because who's going to be the keeper of that information? Is it going to be secure? Things of that nature. But when it comes to just recreation, we've already seen where Ticketmaster has announced that they may require a negative COVID-19 test or proof of the vaccine in order to attend a concert. Do you think that's going to be the way of the future right now?
It may be. I know airlines are looking into that as well in order for flying. They've spoken a lot about this idea of a vaccine passport, so to speak. And I think Dr. Fauci has recently commented about that. And so I think this is going to be an ever evolving situation. This is unprecedented times. We've never needed these types of things before. I'm sure there'll be litigation in the courts over the next few months that will help guide our decisions. But for right now, the best place for employers is that EEOC guidance.
Lindsay Sikora with us here on the Megacast. She is with the Sikora Law Firm. You are a litigator as well. How do you see this playing out in the courts? Is it pretty much certain that it will end up in the court system?
I think eventually it will. How soon, we don't know. But just like after the ruling in 1905 with the Supreme Court regarding the mandate of immunizations in the schools, there was a lot of litigation, and still to this day, that followed that, challenging, the ruling that came down in that case. And so I have a feeling that this will be a similar situation where eventually the Supreme Court will rule on something like this, and there may be challenges along the way that either upheld or reverse that decision.
I do think that the conversation around the vaccine is a little bit different than around the testing, because the testing, there have been so many issues with COVID-19 testing and it being inaccurate in some cases. And so I think this is a little bit different of a conversation, because a vaccine it's a yes or no thing. Did you get it? Did you not get it?
Yeah, I mean, the vaccine is definitely different than asking an employee to be tested. There is less legality around requiring testing than there is requiring vaccines. And, the important thing that the EEOC has spoken about recently is this idea of having a third party administer those vaccines and that testing. And that does remove a lot of the liability of potentially breaching discriminatory policies, HIPAA violations, ADA requirements. If you have a third party, someone outside of the firm, outside of the business, doing these testings and vaccinations, because there are pre-screening questions and documents and health questions that need to be asked to properly administer the vaccine. And if it's done by a third party, it removes that liability from the employer about obtaining and keeping these confidential information.
Well, way back in the beginning of all of this, I know it seems like it was so long ago, but it was just a few months ago. The issue of wearing a mask even came up, because some people were saying, I can't wear a mask due to health reasons. But now we're seeing it's pretty much mandatory to even go into a store, you need to have a mask. And saying you can't, you don't need a mask, or you can't wear a mask due to a health concern really doesn't fly right now if you want access to some of these businesses. Do you think that's going to be the same argument for the vaccine?
I think it's going to be a case-by-case determination based on the business. So I think that it's really important for employers to look into the field that they're in. What industry are they in, and what risks are being posed by allowing non-vaccinated people to be in the workplace. And if you have a workplace where a lot of people are working from home, most people are separated, there's not a lot of client interaction, I think that employer is going to have a harder time mandating vaccinations than somebody who is, in more of a necessary infrastructure type industry.
How does it work when you're a small business? Let's say you only have 4 or 5, even 15 below employees. It can be pretty easy, even if you don't release information about one individual, it can be pretty easy for people to figure out information about that one individual. So how do employers kind of handle that?
Yeah, inferences can be made, and I'm not sure there's much that employers can do about that. But I think the employer's specific actions and communications are what matter and what people would be looking to if there was some sort of liability issue. So be mindful of what you're saying in communications with your staff, whether it be verbal or by email. Be mindful of, what you're keeping document wise and where you're keeping it. Maybe if you're a small business, you have a locked desk drawer. Maybe you have a secured Dropbox account that meets certain HIPAA regulations that you can store things in. So that's going to take a little bit of research for you to make sure that you're storing these documents only where individuals that are allowed to see it have it.
There have been so many questions that have come up. I mean, recently, the one mandate from the health department for restaurants and bars to keep track of their patrons, and not just them, beauty salons, things of that nature. But it was like, who gets that information and where do you secure it and who can have access to it? These are so many questions that a lot of these businesses never had to deal with before. It can be a confusing time.
Yes, it is very overwhelming. I speak with a lot of businesses, and right now the main topic is, what do I do about these vaccines? And it is going to take some time to evolve and see what's required. I think the information of who visits the store is less confidential than employees' information about vaccination and potential medical information that goes along with that. So, HIPAA doesn't cover who's there, but it would cover specific information about their health.
Lindsay Sikora with us here on the Megacast. So you said you've been talking to some businesses. When should a business owner reach out and contact an attorney such as yourself, or try to navigate this on their own?
Right now. I can't stress it enough. Especially for big businesses, there is a lot of work to be done. There is a lot of paperwork, forms, waivers, storage processes, maybe even familiarizing staff with new softwares and things so that you can safely guard this information and that you can make a plan, because there's not one size fits all for businesses regarding whether or not they should mandate. It really does require, and the EEOC has made it clear, you should be looking into the specific business that you're providing and all of the factors that go into that business, and use those to determine whether or not a mandate is right for you, because it might be okay for one business and then might be more discriminatory for another business to practice.
So while we're talking about businesses, what about if it becomes standard practice for people to be able to prove that they've had the vaccine in order to attend a concert or a sporting event, things of that nature? Would a private individual have any legality to refuse to do so and to still be able to attend such events? Because those kind of are not mandated. It's not like you have to go to work. These are, just additional things that you may want to do.
Yes, and I can definitely see the potential conflict there and all of the issues that may arise here shortly because of that. And I think it's important for employers in deciding whether or not to do this mandate to look carefully on how it affects your client base and the risk and health of everybody involved. And so it is important for you to assess everything. It's a huge big picture analysis that needs to take place. And it's also important why that individual is asking or requesting to not have that vaccine. Is it for a health reason? Is it for a religious reason? Those are the two main reasons that are recognized in the United States as a way to avoid these mandates. And so you want to make sure that you're not discriminating against anybody's religious beliefs or health restrictions.
2021 is going to be quite the year, isn't it? I mean, like we said, the vaccine is hope. It does bring hope, but it also brings so many of these legal questions right along with it.
That is very true. And there's a lot to navigate, and it's all unknown. And as we go, we're going to have more answers, and there's no better time to have an expert on your side to make sure that you are following all the laws that are evolving every day. You could have read articles or sought advice 2 weeks ago, and then now, since the EEOC's guidance came out on December 16th, things have changed, and counsel or advice may change with it. So to be on top of that is really important. I can't urge it enough.
So one other question before we let you go. What happens if down the road there are some side effects, some long-term health side effects associated with the vaccine? Would an individual have any legal repercussions to hold either their employer who mandated they get it or the manufacturer of the vaccine liable in any way?
You know, I think there's a lot of unknown regarding that. I think that it's FDA approved, and so the FDA is the entity that is in charge of certifying that these vaccines are safe for the general public. And so I do think employers will be able to rely upon the fact that they are requiring an FDA approved vaccination. It's not something experimental. Although it is new, it is something that has passed the rigorous testing. And so I think it would be reasonable for an employer to hold on to that and use that in help of a potential liability claim.
Lindsay, before we let you go, do you want to let people know where you're located if they have any further questions?
Sure. Sikora Law Firm is in Farmington Hills, Michigan. And you can check out our website, www.sikoralawfirm.com, or give us a call at 248-230-2330.
Lindsay, I have a feeling you and your team are going to be pretty busy going into 2021.
Yes, I would agree, but I'm happy to help.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for informing us and continuing this conversation, which is going to be a top conversation as we continue down this path. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. Still a lot to get to when we return.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Parks COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Thank you for taking the time to tune in to the Oakland County Megacast. Just as a reminder, if you can't catch all of today's shows, you can always go on to civiccentertv.com and get the individual interviews, not from just today, but all of the days in the past as well, or you can listen to the full Megacast as well. And with us now, January is not just a time for resolution, it is also Body Image and Mental Health Month. An important topic, not just in January, but all year long. And to talk more about this topic, Alexa Randolph joins us on the show. She's the author and co-host of the podcast, Staying Strong. Alexa, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Podcasts are really popular right now, but give us a little bit of background. How did you get involved in this and what's your goal with it?
Yeah, and I will say I never thought in a million years I'd be podcasting. I'm not someone that likes to listen to my voice or anything like that, but it's a lot of fun. 4 years ago, the quick story is I was in a bad car accident and ended up with a mild traumatic brain injury, and I suffer from central pain syndrome, which is a chronic pain from a neurological disorder. And I'm in pain 24/7, and I just want to help other people that are going through similar things, whether it be something like mental health, chronic pain, chronic illness, anything really that's invisible, because I look healthy on the outside.
Yeah. So prior to your car accident, did you even realize that this pain and this, it existed?
No, I mean, you hear like on the commercials, like for Lyrica for fibromyalgia. Like, so I'd heard of what fibromyalgia was, but I had no idea.
So what is it like for you every day?
The struggle, for sure. It's definitely a struggle. I like to say, when people say, so do you have good days? It's not that I like to say I have good moments in the day, because I'm always in pain somewhere, somehow, like something's always bothering me. So, but I have better moments in a day than others.
How do you manage the pain and getting through the day then?
I just kind of just do my best to maybe try and distract myself and really listen to my body. Like some days I can't do a lot. So I might lay in bed or lay on the couch, and I don't let myself feel guilty anymore for it.
Yeah, because there's a mental process along with this.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how you got from the car accident to the podcast.
Yeah, so for a good year or so after the car accident, I actually had no idea what I had. I kept having doctors basically tell me it's in my head, that I'm fine, I'm healthy. And I had a doctor basically make it seem like I was making this up. And I said to him, and I'm thinking to myself, I was only 21 at the time. I had just graduated college 2 months prior. I had my whole life ahead of me. Like, why would I want this for myself? It was definitely a struggle for a good year and a half, 2 years. I couldn't work at all. Like, I could barely focus on anything. The pain was horrendous. And I finally had this idea for a blog. I love to write. I had written my 2 novels, like kind of like early on in my illness, but also before I had started it. So I had the writing down, and I'd made a blog, and I wanted to get it out there as much as I could. And we had a family friend that has a studio, and he was telling me all about podcasting. And so I gave it a try September of 2019 and never looked back.
So with that, tell us about the podcast. What topics do you talk about? And I understand you have a co-host as well.
So yes, for the podcast, it's just me. It's called With Love Alexa. And what it is, it's just basically talking about all kinds of mental health, invisible illness, just overall strength and being forever strong. I had one of the interviews I had was with Big Brother 16 contestant Zach Rance. And he's also a mental health coach, and he has his own brand, the Mental Health Collection. And we became friends from him interviewing me, and we connected a lot. And I ended up coming to him with this idea of hosting an event. And that's where the Zoom came to be. And that was September of 2020.
And so what's been the response from the public? Are you finding there are a lot of other people that suffer, such as yourself?
Yeah, whether it's chronic pain, chronic illness, or mental health. There's so many people out there, and so many people feel alone. Like, they don't have the support they need. And that's what I want to be. I want to be that voice to somebody that doesn't feel like they can do it for themselves.
And when you're doing this, there's a lot of work that goes into, creating the podcast. I think people think, oh, you just put up, a mic and you start talking.
No.
But there's a lot of work that goes into it.
Yes, lots of emailing, lots of follow-ups, lots of research. it's definitely like a full-time job.
And so with that, are you able to make a living off of this?
I'm working on it. I've had some really cool things in the works. Like I actually, as a side thing, I have merchandise, Forever Strong merchandise. It's hard to see, but it's like my shirt. So I have like t-shirts, I have sweatshirts, bags, hats, and that kind of goes along with my podcast and with our events.
And
so that
do you,
would help.
and do you think because of your experience and your young age, it is allowing more and more people to feel like they're not alone in their struggles?
I think so. I think because for so long you hear like chronic pain and you think older people, like elderly or just people that are like brittle or older. You don't really think of someone like me.
With us on the Megacast, Alexa Randolph. She's the author and co-host of the podcast Staying Strong. But as you had mentioned, you also wrote a couple books. Do you want to tell us more about that?
Sure. It's also called the With Love series. They can be found on Amazon, Kindle, or paperback. It's there are two books. So the first one is With Love Ella, and the second follows it, and it's called Daniel Ever After. They're my babies. I've the first one I had like the first draft written in like my junior year of college, and it's been very special ever since.
So you started writing when you were in college. What's your degree in?
Communications.
So you went for communications. What was the process like for you to write the book and then to publish it? Did you self-publish?
I did through Amazon KDP, so the Kindle direct publishing, which has been like such a blessing because it's been fun. I got to work with like local editors. I worked with like local artists for my cover. So it's able to work with people. I get to do everything, like choose everything.
So how does this work for you now since you've been unable to work, but yet you're able to balance doing your podcast and writing, but not able to get what we would consider a 9-to-5 job? How are you juggling this new world for you?
It's a struggle. I mean, there's definitely like days I've felt guilty because I've had to cancel on people because I'm literally so sick. Like I can barely move and I just know I won't be my full self. I really only do it maybe a couple hours a day, if that, because my brain just doesn't do well with it anymore. Too much stimulation and too much. But I just schedule out as much as I can. So I get whoever I can get at different times. So Alexa, I work with my body.
You have to listen to your body, right?
Yeah.
Alexa Randolph with us here on the Megacast. She is the co-host of the podcast Staying Strong. Give us some of the topics on Staying Strong. Are you bringing in experts to talk, or is this more just talking about your experience?
Well, actually, I wasn't really sure what I wanted when I first did it. But after my first episode, I've actually had a guest on every single episode, which has been amazing. I've had some professionals, but a lot of it's just people, just everyday people, just sharing their stories, getting their message out. I've also had a lot of reality stars and athletes, which has been really cool. Like I never thought that would happen. I just decided to reach out and people relate to me and my story. So it's been really nice.
So tell us about some of their stories.
Just a lot of people with like mental health, like anxiety, depression, guilt. You would be surprised how many people actually deal with chronic pain, whether it's fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, central pain syndrome like I have. Like there's just so many different things that you wouldn't even, like back pain, that's chronic pain, that's invisible migraines.
Do you think by talking about this issue, it's opening up the doors to the general public to understand? So if they have a loved one suffering from one of these illnesses, they are a little bit more empathetic with them.
I hope so. I think we're getting there. I think we have a little bit of ways to go because what people don't understand, what they can't see. And that's like one of my one of my messages, my lines. It can be really tough to look at me or to look at somebody else and be like, you're not suffering, you're fine, when you see people with a broken arm or an arm cut off or cancer, or just things where you can actually see it.
And while I understand you've been living with your pain for a few years now, one thing that's come out of COVID-19 and this crisis is the issue of mental health. It does seem as if it is being discussed a lot more than years past, and the stigma is starting to be removed. Are you seeing that as well?
I think so. I think people are coming out more and sharing their stories of how they feel alone or how they are struggling. And I think people are really understanding it because everyone is going through this.
So what advice do you give to people?
Just take it one day at a time. Reach out to friends, family, professionals, whatever you need. Just listen to yourself, listen to your body. I think that's the most important, and to stay forever strong.
With that, what advice would you give to someone else that is maybe thinking about starting a podcast or even writing a book? How do you make yourself stand out in this crazy world right now where it seems so many other people are doing the same thing?
I know that's so hard. I think it's your message. I think it's how you portray it and yourself. A lot of it, of course, is social media. But I think most of all, it's your message. I think, yeah, there's so many of the same podcasts, but everyone has a different message.
And do you think one of the things that makes you a little bit different and your co-host is because you guys are younger?
Yeah, I think so. And I think because I am dealing with it, I'm not just picking a random topic and podcasting about it. It's my experiences, and I get to bring what I've learned and what I've dealt with to help other people. So I think that helps too.
So do you want to give us a list? Who are some of the guests that you've had on your show?
Yeah, I've had anyone from like Ben Higgins from The Bachelor, Ashley Icanetti-Haben, Zach Rance, Blake Hortzman. I've had Jimmy King and Darren McCarty. And I've just had your everyday person that's dealt with pain.
So what have you learned from interviewing these individuals?
I've learned we all have a story, and it doesn't matter if you think someone's life's perfect. Nobody's life's perfect. Nobody, no matter if you're rich, you're poor, you're famous, you're not famous, whoever, we all have a story and we all have struggles.
Alexa Randolph with us here on the Megacast. She's the author and co-host of the podcast Staying Strong. Alexa, for those maybe not familiar with the podcast world, where can they find these interviews?
So they can find it on either my website, alexarandolph.com. I can Spotify podcasts are on, I think there's like Google Podcasts, really wherever you listen to a podcast. Apple has them.
Do you think it was your communications background has really helped lead you down this new avenue in your life?
Actually, never really thought about it, but yeah, I think so, because I've learned a lot about this. I've learned about like verbal communications, but I've also learned how to interact with people.
What did you want to do when you were in college? Where'd you go to school?
I went to Michigan State, 2016, so go green. And I wanted event planning since I was a senior in high school. All the way through, I wanted maybe like wedding planning, but then eventually corporate. And I got to do it for a little while, but then with everything that happened, I had to give up kind of, or change paths.
Right. Sometimes, life puts us on a different path for a reason.
Yes.
So Alexa Randolph with us again. She's with the podcast Staying Strong. Alexa, great to have you with us. Anything maybe I didn't touch on that you want to talk about before we let you go?
Sure. Something kind of like what we talked about for a second, but tomorrow night is our body image mental health event. I co-host with Zach Rance of the Mental Health Collection in Big Brother 16. And you can just go on my website, alexarandolph.com. It's tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. We have some amazing guests, and it's a free Zoom event.
That's great. How important has it been for you to collaborate with other individuals?
So important. I mean, I can only do so much, whether it be from whatever I'm doing. It's just I can't do it alone, and no one can do it alone. So it's been really cool getting to meet so many new people because of these collaborations.
So again, when is the event? It's tomorrow, and they just sign up through your website?
Yep, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's completely free. You just go on my website, there's a picture, and it'll take you to the link.
Alexa, we so appreciate your time, and we wish you the best going forward. And, what's the long-term prognosis for you? Is this something you're just going to have to learn to live with?
Yep, as of now, I'm on no medication or anything because nothing helps. So I'm just dealing with it and just doing the best that I can and trying to help others.
Well, we wish you the best. And again, just by talking about it, you are helping a lot of other people.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. Still a lot to get to in the second hour. But when we come back, we will be joined with the high school sports writer for the Detroit Free Press. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart. Keep wearing a mask in public. And if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Welcome back to the second hour of the Oakland County Megacast. As a reminder, you can catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Channel 15 if you have Comcast, 99 on AT&T. If you're out driving around, you can tune us into 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The BIP. We also want to say thank you to the West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce for allowing us to live stream today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast on their Facebook page. So thank you to them. COVID-19 craziness continues as we go into 2021, and it's been quite the time for so many of our high school athletes and the coaches trying to navigate this insane time. Joining us now on the Megacast is Mick McCabe. He's the Detroit Free Press high school sports writer. Mick, thanks for being with us.
Good to be here, Ronnie.
I'm not actually a sports expert. I know that football, you have a ball that you run up and down the field. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Tyler. He's our sports expert to talk to you more about how you're dealing with all these sports and how, what it means for your job. Tyler, do you want to take the interview away?
Sure. Thank you, Ronnie. So Mick, the biggest story right now in high school sports is this continuously delayed return there, better yet, to the fall season in high school sports, and then the delayed start thereafter to winter sports. Let's start with the high school sports because they were scheduled to come back before the end of that the pause. The pause, of course, was extended. Then they were going to return at the beginning of January, last week, Saturday, but there was some confusion there that then led to the season being delayed another week. Can you give us a little bit of insight from what you know about what that was that caused this delay for another week for this season? Because it's been a little bit confusing for some people who were ready to go on January 2nd, and then, of course, the season was then suspended again for one more week until, of course, this weekend when the playoffs will resume, at least in football.
Well, it was the Department of Health and Human Services, and they, together with Governor Gretchen Whitmer, they never said, okay, this is going to be the restart date. Yeah, they were thinking, we're going to see where the numbers take us. And then when they finally came out and said, well, you're not going to be able to play a football game until the 9th, a lot of people had their hopes up they were going to be able to play on the 2nd, but for some reasons, it just never happened. And then, so now we are with the 11-player regional finals, which is basically quarterfinal games, and we're playing this Saturday, and then we play next Saturday, and then the following Saturday, we finally go out, get indoors at Ford Field. The MHSA doesn't have Ford Field wrapped up yet, but they expect to very soon. So hopefully at least we'll be able to go inside. So we're hoping for good weather this week, and then we need another Saturday of good weather too. And then basketball is just really got the short end of the stick. The MHSA asked the governor's office and the HHS, can we at least begin practice or workouts, not formal practice, just workouts with one coach and 4 players, like they usually do in the fall. And they said, nope, nothing until like the 19th or 16th, something like that. And so they have 1 week where they'll have tryouts and then begin games. They're going to have to play like this Friday the 22nd and Saturday the 23rd, and then play 3 games a week, boys and girls, all the way until the state tournament begins in March. And just if you think about it, what the representative, now this part is on the representative council of the MHSAA. What they should have done was taken the boys and girls state tournaments and pushed them back 2 weeks into April. And that way they wouldn't have to rush through this season. I mean, this is going to be a sprint. And what happens if there's another breakout? What happens if teams can't play those games? Who knows how many games they're going to end up with? They're allowed to play 20, and some schools won't get close to that. So if they would have extended it by 2 weeks, that would have been much, much better. But for some reason, the rep council of the MHSA said, well, we don't want to back up into the middle of spring break. Spring break? Who's going on spring break this year? You got to be an imbecile with this. Until we get more people, a lot more people vaccinated, you're nuts if you go anywhere. And then they said, well, we don't want to interfere with the beginning of spring sports practice, because spring sports, they didn't get a season at all last year. At least basketball, boys and girls, was able to get a regular season and part of their state tournament, but they got nothing to spring. Well, really, spring practice, they don't do any spring sports. They don't do anything meaningful until the middle of April. I mean, this is Michigan. April's a mess, and then it's a sprint for them. And by April 15th, the boys basketball, girls basketball, they'll be done. Spring sports can go. And I think it was a huge disservice the rep council of the MHSA played to boys and girls basketball.
Yeah, there's been so much focus throughout this year, and especially after coming off last year's spring sports season where they really just lost everything with regard to those players, those coaches, those teams, those communities having that sports season. They've been so adamant this year, the MHSAA, to get a full fall season, a full winter season, a full spring season in, however they need to pull that off. And maybe that adamance to get those full seasons in, it's been a little bit of a detriment, particularly for these winter sports. 3 basketball games a week for a several-week period for a couple of months. That's a lot of basketball at any level of the sport, especially at a high school level where you have a set amount of practices a week. These players are still very young. Their bodies are still developing. There is a high chance of injury. Are you hearing anything from the teams themselves, from the coaches, from the athletics departments, from the players? What are their thoughts on this accelerated season that, like you said, is very much a sprint and then slows down right at the point where the competition is getting to be its toughest?
Well, yeah, I've talked to a lot of them, and I really can't use the words they use, not on TV. They're just furious. They got the short end of the stick. What the MHSA has done, they've taken a 13-week season and boiled it down to 6 weeks and 2 days. And you're supposed to do in 6 weeks and 2 days what you've done in 13 weeks. And if they're so concerned with spring sports, which is fine, they could have backed those up till the end of June too. Now, I'm not saying you have to go to the middle of July, but they could have backed them up a couple of weeks too, and that would have been even better for them because, like I said, in April, what do we do here in April? I mean, it's a mess. They have to reschedule stuff all the time.
Yeah, and you see that if spring sports and not wanting to rip that season apart any more than it already was a year ago with the beginning of this pandemic, you've already seen they took the fall sports season, they reduced the size of that season's schedule in order to fit that in and get the winter season and the spring season in a timely manner, considering last year fall sports had its full season, winter almost had its full season, and spring had no season. There hasn't been reluctance there in the past to reduce the number of games, to reduce the length of the season a little bit, to delay things somewhat, to make sure that things work. And now there seems to be that reluctance as they want to get full seasons in these two areas where these two sports seasons where a year ago in 2020 they didn't get that full experience, and maybe that's going to be a bit of a detriment. Going back to the fall sports season, which is now restarting, let's start with high school football, because that extra week delay, because of the confusion from the Department of Health and Human Services, from the MHSAA, down to these individual programs, causing that 1 week delay, that 1 week has immense impact, because now these last 3 weeks of the season get to a point where for many of these teams, when they get to if and when they do make it to the state championship game, I think of teams like Belleville and certainly here in West Bloomfield, key players are not going to be eligible because they are early enrolling, they are graduating from high school, their seasons will be over by the time they get to the state championship game. How big of an impact, especially on powerhouse teams like the West Bloomfield Lakers, like the Belleville Tigers, is the delay, that extra 1 week delay, going to have on the final result, particularly in Division I, but really all across the board in high school football?
Well, if they're smart about it, the kids will, first of all, they're not going to be ineligible, because think about it, in baseball and softball, for those seniors, every one of them has graduated already in baseball and softball. So what's wrong with these kids coming back for another week after they've graduated in football? The problem is these kids, some of them are going to enroll early in college. Right. And some of them well, I need to go right now. There's no reason to go right now. I mean, classes are remote in college right now, okay? They can take their college classes in their bedroom at home if they want to. They don't have to get to the campuses right away. So I don't think that is, if they really think about it, this is not, there's some kids saying, well, I don't know if I should play, I might get hurt. Well, this isn't, you're going to be preparing for the NFL draft, and you're going to skip a college bowl game. This is apples to elephants. they're getting ready to go and have spring practice. Okay, I mean practice. We're talking about practice. Anyway, so there's no reason for them, no good reason for them not to finish the season with their schools.
Yeah, and that's going to be, of course, the decision of those individual players as they get further along. They will be playing, from what I've heard, at least in West Bloomfield, some of those players that do plan to early enroll will be playing for at least the next 2 weeks. Whether or not they play in the state championship game will, of course, depend on whether or not they early enroll. And, of course, most importantly, most simply, whether or not those teams make it all the way. In terms of preparing for this particular restart, these teams have done this before. The start and stop has been characteristic of this 2020 fall sports season, now going into the 2020-2021 fall sports season. They've done this before, but it's a little bit different now because the conditions are certainly well far and beyond what they are used to playing in this late in the season, with January weather, potential for snow, extreme cold, ice, whatever the case may be. These high schools don't necessarily have the same facilities management that is in place at a college level, and certainly not at the NFL level. How are these high school teams preparing to play football in some of the toughest elements that they'll probably ever experience at the high school level?
Well, we played in bad weather before. We've had a lot of cold days in November over the years. They're getting along way better than I thought they would. I've talked to a lot of coaches, and they said, this is great. See, what they're also doing is they're using their gyms. They can get a lot of work done inside their gyms, but they have to go outside and, get used to being cold. And it hasn't been nearly as bad as the coaches were afraid it was going to be. I mean, I talked to the coach up in Negaunee in the Upper Peninsula. They get a tractor to clean off their field before they can have practice. And he said the kids are great. They just dress a little warmer, and they're excited to be back. There were coaches who are very skeptical about this, say the kids are showing up, they're happy to be there, and the coaches like it more than they thought too. So I think, if they have a right positive, my biggest concern are there are some coaches who are very didn't want to do this. And if their mental frame is translated to their players, they got no chance this week. But if the coaches are positive, it translates to their players' frame of mind, I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and in the end, these football players, these coaches, they've wanted to get back to this for so long. And I think that especially at this level where you have 3 weeks left, the regional final, the semifinal, and the state championship, you're so close at this point to winning that title that more than ever before, these teams have worked so hard in pursuing that motivation is kind of just there naturally in some cases, although there's some reluctance. So on Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock p.m. here in West Bloomfield, the Lakers will be taking on the Romeo Bulldogs in their regional final. That matchup between a team that's been pretty dominant, very dominant, especially on the defensive side of the ball this year in West Bloomfield, versus really the Cinderella story of the Division I playoff in Romeo. So much of playoff sports at any level, or really just sports in general, has to do with momentum, and Romeo was absolutely firing. They had played some tough games, some very competitive games leading up to that regional final, starting off against Anchor Bay, of course, the 3 seed, then beating Macomb Dakota by 1 point, going on to beat Stony Creek, that also had a really strong season, and now they're going up against West Bloomfield. Coming into that game initially, they had all the momentum in the world, as did West Bloomfield, and now after this pause, after this delay of so many weeks, how big of an impact is that going to have on a team like Romeo going up against a team with as much star power and as much chemistry as the West Bloomfield Lakers on Saturday in that regional final?
Well, I think it's so much has to do with how the coaches have prepared their kids. Romeo played in the MAC Red, okay, which is like the OAA Red, except this year I think it was even tougher than normal. I think the MAC Red was the best league in the state, and so I think they'll be prepared for playing tough games. Now, they're not going to be prepared for Donovan Edwards, because there's nobody in the MAC Red who has Donovan Edwards. So, stopping him, and I'm sure Donovan's going to get a lot of work in. they intentionally didn't feed him the ball constantly during the regular season. They didn't want him to get worn out, and he wasn't worn out. He was absolutely fabulous when they just destroyed a really good Sterling Heights Stevenson team in the regional semifinal. And he's really going to be fresh now. And I know Donovan's been working out constantly, so he should be really good. It's if they can devise a plan to stop Donovan, then I think it'll be a really good game. If they can't stop Donovan, they're not going to stop anybody. And that's why West Bloomfield's definitely favored.
Yeah, West Bloomfield definitely coming into this as the favorite, a 64-point, the playoff point team coming in this side of the bracket in this particular district and in this set of districts. They were number 2 in district number 7. Romeo, the 6th seed in district number 8. And West Bloomfield, as much as we can talk about Donovan Edwards and the season that he's had and the offensive firepower that the Lakers have, what's really been the hallmark of this team in the 2020 and now the 2020-2021 fall football season has been that defense. Still coming back, still healthy, still has that full dominant front seven in their D-line and their linebacker core coming back for these final 3 games, for much of these final 3 games potentially. Does Romeo have the offensive scheme, the offensive talent, and really the fortitude based on what you have observed from them over the course of this season to be competitive against a defense that, against the best of the best in this regular season, has been virtually unstoppable?
Yeah, Romeo has an excellent offensive line and another excellent defensive line. And we all know that games are often won in the trenches by the linemen. So I would not, even though they've got some losses, obviously, I would not sell Romeo short here. There's no question West Bloomfield is heavily favored, but Romeo is very well coached, as is West Bloomfield. And I expect it to be a good ball game. I think they can devise a scheme. They've certainly had enough time to set a defensive scheme. So I think they have a better than average shot to make this a very competitive game.
Yeah, I mean, if they can come close to dropping a 50-piece on Stony Creek a week after an extremely competitive game against a yearly contender like Macomb, Dakota, they are an incredibly well-coached team. They've had a very tough season. They've certainly had the momentum. They are a team that has proven 36 playoff points doesn't mean anything. That's an arbitrary number. We are able to compete against the best of the best. We are just as good as any other team. I'm excited for that game. We're going to be broadcasting it here on Lakes FM at 1 o'clock is the kickoff. Our coverage will begin about 12:30, and it's going to be a very competitive game. These are 2 teams that are coming in hungry. West Bloomfield has been so close to winning state championships in the past several years, and it's just come up short. Romeo is a team that, much like in Division II with Oak Park, did not have the greatest regular season in the win-loss column, but is having a really strong playoff performance. That's going to be a great game. So for Division I, on this side, on both sides of the bracket, we have a lot of very talented teams. Rockford and Saline have been having a great season. On the other side, as has Davison. Belleville's always a title contender, and of course, same thing here in West Bloomfield. So Mick McCabe with us, the Detroit Free Press high school sports writer, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. What is your prediction? What team are you looking at in this final 3 weeks of high school football in Division I as the team to beat, and who do you believe will be, based on your predictions, the state champion in Division I?
Well, obviously Belleville has been ranked number 1, but Cass Tech is really good. And I'm picking Cass Tech to upset Belleville. The only thing is everybody playing for Cass Tech? The Twins are really good players. They're going to Penn State, but are they actually going to play? And if they play, I think they're capable of winning state championship, Kalen King and his brother Kobe. If not, Detroit Catholic Central is flying under the radar. I mean, CC never flies under the radar, but they're really good. They play excellent defense. They can stop the run. I wouldn't be shocked if Catholic Central surprised everybody won the state championship.
Yeah, it's going to be all about momentum and preparation in these last few weeks. Good, well-coached teams still available. really talented teams still out there on all four corners of that D1 bracket. It's anybody's game at this point. We appreciate having you on, Mick McCabe, Detroit high school sports writer for the Detroit Free Press. Anything else you'd like to mention before we let you go? I see you holding up your book.
Yeah, we have this book. It's very well done. Gene Myers is a fabulous editor, and Ryan Ford is just an amazing designer. And we put this book together, and it's really good. Mick McCabe's Golden Yearbook, and I think on the Free Press website under sports, it gives you a link how to buy the book. And people have seen it's not just football and basketball. Every Miss Tennis, Mr. or Miss Golf, somebody who won one of those awards, they're listed in the book.
Yeah, it's a really interesting book looking back at the last 50 years of high school sports in the state of Michigan. Mick McCabe, we thank you very much for being with us today.
Okay, next time Ronnie's got to do the lipstick on me because mine wore off. I need her to take care of me.
Yeah, we'll get her on that for sure. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Mick McCabe joining us, high school sports writer at the Detroit Free Press. As we get ready to resume high school sports. The fall season resumes this week. High school football on Saturday. We'll have our live coverage of the West Bloomfield Lakers taking on the Romeo Bulldogs. That kickoff 1 o'clock on Saturday at West Bloomfield High School. That broadcast will be right here on 89.3 Lakes FM and on Civic Center TV. In the meantime, more Oakland County Megacast coming up. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will be speaking with a Lego master, an artist, someone that's doing some really amazing things with Legos. Ronnie and I will return with that interview after this break. You're watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus-test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
The only way to beat COVID-19 is to face it.
You can't get too comfortable.
You can't forget the danger.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask. Wash your hands.
Keep a safe distance.
Especially in the next few months.
You know we'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
Someday.
But not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But not yet.
But not yet.
Consider virtual gatherings for the holidays.
Curbside food orders.
Grocery delivery.
And shopping local. Shop local.
And especially shopping local.
Let's beat this virus. We can if we face it together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
For the latest information, visit oakgov.com/COVID.
Thank you for taking time out of your Wednesday to be with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. We have about 40 minutes left in the show. This next guest, quite amazing. We all remember Legos from our childhoods. They've been sparking imaginations. They're the building blocks of creativity. But our next guest is taking it to a whole new level. These are amazing. With us now on the Megacast, Dr. Aaron Liepman. He's the Lego brick maniac. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to share about my Legos.
These are incredible. I was on your website. How do you come up with the designs, and how long does it take you?
So they're progressively taking longer as I learn more and kind of dive deeper. So it started innocently enough with a mosaic that I wanted to make for my brother-in-law for his birthday. And so that was about 8 years ago. And he was a big fan of the Hulk. So I made a Lego mosaic. So Lego mosaics are, a lot of people think about building with Lego in 3D. So we build cars and houses and all kinds of cool creations, lots of sets and stuff. These are more 2D based, where I'm using the blocks basically as pixels. And so I'm creating really elaborate mosaics using different color bricks. So, it started as maybe, 10 hours for a piece. And now, the current piece that I'm building, probably 150 hours.
That is amazing. But can we back up in this conversation for just a second? You started this like 7 years ago, but were you a Lego kid like when you were 4, 5, 6 years old?
Yeah, so we had Legos. I think we got a bucket of bricks at a flea market or something, and just would build and tear down and rebuild. And, it was pretty standard back when I was a kid. We had, just some pretty basic pieces, and would build houses and cars, and we didn't have a lot of sets. So just kind of full creativity of, whatever we wanted. So my brother and I would build from that bucket.
And so now you are the Lego maniac. How do you come up with the designs?
Brick maniac. I can't.
The brick maniac.
Lego maniac, or the Lego legal team will come from me. So
right. So you have to separate that. But how do you come up with the designs and what you're going to do next? Or is it sparked out of trying to design something for someone you know?
Yeah. So it's been mostly that so far. I've built, I think, about 20 of them so far, and many of them have been gifts for friends and relatives. So I have also, I built one for Mott Children's Hospital, so I can show you that one. That's Spider-Man over here. So Spider-Man is about 20 inches by 20 inches, and about 1,200 Lego pieces. So once it's possible to get back to the hospital, or back into the hospital, I would like for it to go there and be displayed somewhere. You can see a couple little small mosaics. Those are about 10 inches square. Those are Christmas themed. So I've got a Grinch and Santa.
And how many pieces does it take to do one of these?
For which one?
Or like the Spider-Man, how many pieces?
Spider-Man, I think, I don't remember exactly, but I think it's around 12 or 1,500 pieces.
So when you're designing it, do you like sketch the design first to kind of do an outline, or is it all freehand?
No, it's not freehand. Freehand, I would lose my mind. So I'm a scientist during my day job, and so I'm very exacting in certain ways, and so it pays off. But yeah, it's a lot of planning. So you really have to consider certain constraints of building in this medium. So one of them is that a lot of people say, "Oh, can you make a mosaic of something really complicated?" And the answer is yes, but it just needs to be humongous if you're going to do that. So I try to focus on things that are tight crops, so that you can get a lot of detail, a lot of close-up detail, without having to make it, the size of a building. Because we're working at about 3.2 DPI. So you think about a standard image on a computer at 72 DPI. So you get 3.2 pixels in an inch. It's going to be huge if you want to make a lot of pixels. You want to make a lot of detail, you need a lot of pixels. You want a lot of pixels, you need a lot of space. So it's very difficult to find images that render well in this medium. When I do, that can be an inspiration in and of itself. Like, I just want to see how it's going to come out. Like, you can see another one behind me. This one, that's this zebra. So this one is about 50 inches square. It's about 12,000 pieces. Let me get real close so you can see that it's actually made of Legos.
Holy cow, that is stunning.
Yeah, so I just finished that one a couple months ago. Here's one of, probably might know who this guy is. Famous quarterback from U of M.
Wow.
Tom Brady.
That is absolutely amazing. Why do you do this? Is it a form of relaxation for you?
Yeah, it is. I think that I've got an artist inside of me somewhere.
Yeah, because typically when you think of scientists, people, those lines don't necessarily cross. The creativity, the mind that is the creative mind versus the analytical mind of a scientist. And here you are crossing both genres.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of technical aspects of this type of building, this type of art. So that could be part of the appeal. I mean, I was inspired by it when I was I was visiting Chicago with my kids, and we went to the Lego store on Michigan Ave, and they have a huge mosaic of the cityscape on the wall outside. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but that when I saw that, I kind of just did a double take and said, wow, that's really interesting. Like, how do they do that? And when I knew that I wanted to do that myself, and then it was a matter of then it became a problem, right, that I needed to solve. And so then it leads into a lot of the scientific method. So, I mean, I started with spray paint and a very limited color palette. So one of the things that I haven't mentioned is that I paint the Lego pieces. So these are not standard Lego bricks for the most part, because the Lego palette is very limited. So if you want to get 24 shades of gray, forget it. Unless you really want to pick through a bajillion Legos, you're not going to find them. So I just took matters into my own hand and found ways that I could coat them effectively and still, maintain the look so that they're not totally glommed down. But I started with the spray paints and was spray painting in the house, and it was noxious and horrible. And I've evolved. I went to craft paints after that, and that nearly cost me my marriage because we couldn't figure out if it was blue-green or green-blue, and just finding the right colors is very difficult. So I've tried to find ways to preserve the harmony in my life and still have this hobby of mine.
It is quite the hobby. It is look at the shading, the shading that goes into that. It's very specific.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. If you don't have the color range, you lose the detail. And it's really fascinating that we can get, smooth arcs with angular bricks. So that to me is really fascinating. There's a whole just the fact that it's messing with your mind, right? Because I know that these are blocks. Each one of these is a square block, and yet we have these smooth contours and round things. So I'll show you my current work. This guy here, you probably know.
Wow.
So this is the biggest one I've ever made. This is MLK, and he's addressing a rally in Los Angeles in 1963. This one I'm trying to finish by MLK Day. So it's a work in progress. You can see that there are some gaps in it still. And I can show you why that is. There's, so each panel, so I build it on panels. Each panel is about 15 inches square.
Oh.
So I'm going to stitch them together. I've left some areas where blocks cross the panels so everything will stick together, and then I'll frame it at the end. But you can see up close, it kind of looks a little weird. And when you step back, you can really see things, your mind kind of smooths everything out. And then you can see, oh, that's his cheekbone, or that's his ear, or whatever. And I find the in-person interaction really cool. There was a Lego exhibition in the Ann Arbor area, I think it was February of 2020, called the Brick Bash. And I had displayed another piece of an owl that's up in my son's room, but that one I displayed it, and people were kind of walking by it, and then they wouldn't really pay attention. And then they got about 15 feet away from it and their eyes just got wide and they just stopped and just couldn't believe it, because it looked like feathers. I mean, just really soft. And it's just amazing how things like that happen. So I find it fascinating. I think that's part of my motivation, is just like, what can you make next?
Dr. Aaron Leitman with us here on the Megacast. He is the Lego brick maniac. Your work, it's amazing. It's beautiful. Who thought Legos could look like that? You mentioned that you have kids. Has this become a family affair?
So my son did commission a piece from me. So that was for his room. So each of my kids has a couple of them. Actually, my younger son has 3 of them because he commissioned that owl as the 3rd one. So I got paid $100 for that one. That was a pretty good deal.
So you hear you could probably hear my dog barking in the background. And I think it's because, I have your webpage up as well. And that picture of Spider-Man, I think she's trying to tell me I need that for my husband.
Okay. Well, yeah, I am taking commissions. So if people are interested, by all means, can contact me on my website, brickmaniac.com.
But with that, Aaron, you are a doctor. I mean, you have a job. This is not your job.
It's true. So, I mean, I can't promise that I'll have it done for you very soon, but still, it's a labor of love.
What does your wife think about this?
I think that she's probably happy I'm not getting into some other kind of trouble. So, this is good. She knows where I am, and yeah, I'm just kind of in the basement hanging out.
So my husband collects comics, and he always says, "Well, if this is the worst thing I'm doing, we're okay."
Exactly.
And I would imagine she probably feels somewhat the same way.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, we each have our hobbies. She plays piano, and I work on Legos, so it's all good.
So have you showed this in some of your pieces of work to some of the people at Lego?
I haven't. I have some of my pieces are posted on Instagram, and it's possible that, maybe they could see them that way. But no, I haven't. I think Lego, the only time they've been in touch with me is when I kind of overstepped my boundaries and had the word Lego in my domain name, and then their lawyers came after me.
Yeah, they don't like that stuff, do they?
Not very much.
Well, your work is absolutely amazing. During COVID-19 and the pandemic, has it brought you some type of relief at all to be able to escape into this world?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it anytime, and for sure I've had some more time to do it. My research has been kind of paused a little bit, so I haven't been on campus as much, and so I've definitely had the opportunity to do some more work on this MLK mosaic for sure.
So with that, what do you do for a living? Do you mind me asking?
No, not at all. I'm a biology professor at Eastern Michigan University.
So what do your students think about this? Do you get bonus points? I mean, you know how they rate their professors? It has to earn you some cool points.
I mean, I don't know if that comes into the equation at all. I've had some students that have been aware of it and they think it's pretty cool, but it's not something that I usually present in that part of my life.
So you said you've been doing this for about 7 years now. Yeah. Where do you think you're going to go with this, or is it just a hobby?
I mean, if somebody wants to pay me to do this, I won't refuse it. But I mean, so far I've not had any offers. So as I say, I'm taking commissions. I have built one commission piece, and besides the one for my son. So that was kind of a joke commission. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping, I mean, really like to have some of these pieces displayed somewhere. I mean, it's great to look at them in my basement. Like the Tom Brady piece I built for Chad Tuff Foundation, which is a pediatric brain cancer. It's a group that raises money to promote research and support families with kids that have it. I'm trying to get Tom Brady's autograph for it because I want to put it in their charity auction. I want them to get $1 bajillion for it. But I've been striking out. So if anybody in your audience can connect me with somebody who can connect me with Tom Brady, I'm just asking for 3 seconds of his time. That'd be great. This MLK piece, I would love for it to go someplace where people can freely see it. I think that, it's cool to look at on a computer screen, but really you need to see it in person in order to really understand that it just affects people in a cool way when they see it and interact with it. And I mean, I've enjoyed building it. I've listened to some sermons, and it's just been an opportunity for me to learn more about the civil rights movement. And I think, it may get another generation of people sort of thinking about it and learning and aware, and that's good as far as I'm concerned.
It really is astounding, and I'm only looking at it through a computer screen, so it must be incredible to see in person. Again, Aaron, where can people find out more or be able to see some of your other work as well?
Yep, so I have a website. It's brickmaniac.com, and I'm also on Instagram, and that's at Brick Mosaics. At Brick Mosaics. So yeah. And I have a collection of ebooks too. So if I've got one more second, like these are instructions for kids if they want to build mosaics, trying to get the next generation of brick maniacs possessed. So the instructions for this one are actually available free right now on Amazon. So if you search my name, and I can send you a link if you want to post it. Potentially, people can access these instructions for free and maybe build with their kids, a little mosaic with pieces that you might already have.
Yeah, it is a great way for parents and their kids to work on a project together.
Yeah, I agree.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Your creativity is astounding. So we appreciate your time. But yeah, if you could send us that link, and then we can add it to the social media when we post it as well. And thank you for taking time to be with us. I'm flabbergasted, by the way, that you're able to do this, but then also you're a biology professor on top of it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share the work, and I'd be happy to share again. There will be more coming, I promise.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing the end of the project with your MLK, because it's hard to believe these are Lego pieces.
It's only 15,000. That's it.
That's it. Just a few. Well, thank you so much, Aaron, for being with us. We so appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast.
Perry tested positive for COVID-19. Emma was exposed to a friend who's positive. Willa's waiting on test results. After any contact with COVID-19, or if you test positive, stay home for at least 10 days. If you live with others, keep your distance and wear a mask. Help Michigan contain COVID-19. Visit michigan.gov/containcovid.
COVID-19 has caused many families to fall behind on finances and on groceries. But you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. My Bridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Great to have you with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Just as a reminder, you can catch Tyler and I Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. Check us out on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. You can also tune us in channel 15 if you have Comcast, 99 if you have AT&T, and catch us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And we want to say thank you to the West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce for allowing us to live stream today's edition of the Megacast on their Facebook page. So shifting a little bit, downtown Berkeley, one of my favorite places to shop. It's home to over 250 small businesses, but the COVID crisis has made for some tough times, and businesses have had to get creative to keep the cash flowing. To talk more about what's being done in Berkeley, Jennifer Finney, she's the Executive Director for the Berkeley Downtown Development Authority. Great to have you with us, Jennifer.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Can we start off with how are some of the businesses doing right now? Have some had had to close their doors because of the crisis?
We unfortunately have seen a few close their doors due to the crisis. However, many of our businesses have pivoted and are being very creative, and they're able to remain open despite, the decrease in sales and the decrease in traffic to our downtown.
I think the word of 2020 has been pivot. With that, what are some of the things that they are doing to try to keep the customers coming?
Many have, extended hours, or they'll have special hours. So it can be an appointment based only to go into their store. So shoppers feel, more at ease. A lot of them have developed curbside pickup and free local delivery. A lot of them also have increased their online presence. Some of them didn't have e-commerce websites before. Now they do. And for some of our restaurants, they've been extremely creative as well in working with the city and myself. Berkeley Common, for instance, was able to close down the side street, and they now have igloos where you can dine in igloos. During the summer, they had different picnic tables. So our businesses, it's amazing. They really have been so creative in different approaches, and it's been really inspiring to see.
Yeah, how important has it been for some of these businesses to collaborate not only with one another, but also some of the elected officials there in Berkeley to come up with some of these creative solutions?
Oh my gosh, it's been so important. I mean, it's, business owners are so creative, and it's been great to, connect with them. Of course, obviously, we all wish it wasn't for a pandemic situation, but it's, been great to connect with them to see their creativity and to work to create, to make kind of their vision happen so they can survive. They've, appreciated the support, and, we're happy to support them in, whatever way that we can.
With that, do you want to talk about a few of the things that are going on right now?
Sure, yes. Actually, the DDA has a promotion going on right now. It's called the 21 Days of Berkeley. Basically, if you spend $40 at select downtown merchants and restaurants, you will then earn $20 in downtown Berkeley bucks. Downtown Berkeley bucks are basically a gift certificate that select merchants and restaurants accept. There is a limit, so each individual can only earn up to 100 downtown Berkeley bucks. This promotion actually kicked off on Monday, and it goes until January 24th. We've already seen many people, reach out with questions saying this is a great promotion, and it's just, one little way to help drive people into the city to help support our businesses, because they need all the support they can get right now.
And I love that you're doing it in January, because there was so much focus on the holiday shopping that January can be extremely slow for some of these smaller businesses, but this kind of keeps the revenue flowing.
It does, yes. Historically, we've seen kind of a slump in January and February. So we really wanted this promotion to happen in January. And with the downtown Berkeley bucks that people earn during this promotion, they actually do have to spend them by the end of February. So again, we're condensing it into those two slower months to kind of ramp up some sales for our businesses.
And with that being the slower months, we are in the middle of winter. If we can shift a little bit to talk about some of the restaurants and the bars, how are they surviving right now? I know that some have igloos, but that's kind of a Band-Aid during this time.
Right, yes, it definitely is. Luckily, we've had great support with Oakland County. They've been able to provide the city and our businesses with additional resources. So whether businesses don't have the space to do igloos, a lot of them do have the capability and ability to do some sort of outdoor dining. So we're able to provide tents and heaters and propane. Some of our businesses, of course, back in the fall already invested in these to prepare for the winter months, knowing that they would probably need to do more outdoor dining than inside dining. So we're also working on a reimbursement program to help our businesses with those costs.
So where does that money come from?
That money is actually coming from Oakland County itself. They were awarded a grant. So we're working very closely with them and city officials to get the reimbursement process started for our businesses.
So we've had Oakland County, and we've talked before about some of these grants, but we also know they're very competitive to be able to get. So if I'm a small business, what's the best way for me to go about trying to take advantage of some of these grants?
So the best way is to reach out to myself or someone from the city of Berkeley, or, if you're not even in Berkeley, if you're in Oakland County in a different city, to reach out to the DDA director or city manager, and they can definitely help you walk through any application. A lot of us have close ties with Oakland County and can kind of, help bridge that gap to make sure the application is filled out correctly, and to even, nurture that relationship with Oakland County and the business owner to help.
Jennifer Finney with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. She's the executive director for the Berkeley Downtown Development Authority. What do you think has been a positive to come out of the crisis?
That's a great question. Definitely more of a sense of community. I always love to tell people that Berkeley is such a welcoming community, has a small town vibe, but we've definitely gotten even closer despite the pandemic. And, of course it was hard during the shutdown where everything was virtual, but we've really just all come together from a city standpoint, chamber standpoint. I've seen businesses collaborate with each other. Everyone's just really trying to help each other out, and it's just great to see.
We're 10 months into the COVID-19 crisis. Are you seeing fatigue, though, from some of your business owners? Like in the beginning, it's survival and they're in it, and there's some excitement there too. But now we're 10 months into it. Are frustrations still mounting, or has it almost become the norm for some of these business owners?
For a lot of them, it actually has become the norm. Luckily, they haven't, hit that, frustration point yet. They're still, in that creative mindset. I, personally talk to a lot of them just as a creative outlet. So I think, at the very least, if I can serve as a creative outlet for them for different ideas, whether it's, a social media strategy or, helping them find a good e-commerce platform, that has definitely helped. So we're very lucky here that they, continue to pivot and continue to be very creative so they can last and survive the pandemic.
10 months into it, and you talked about the social media platform. Have they finally realized how important social media is to some of these companies to survive?
Yes. Yes, which is very nice. From, I have a background in marketing, so I've always seen the value of, social media and websites. And definitely now, since the world has shifted to digital, and even after the pandemic, it will definitely stay probably more digital. They've definitely seen, the impact that social media and websites can have. So that has been, rewarding. It's just, not just me saying, oh, you should have a social media presence, but now kind of this pandemic is, also pushing and kind of showing them, okay, this is the right direction for me to go, and it is worth it to invest my time and resources.
One of the things I've noticed, though, while some maybe started back at the beginning of the pandemic, you're seeing where they're not posting very often. And as a consumer, when I see that, I wonder, what is the engagement behind the scenes? And so, now it's like shifting that focus for them to understand and to realize they have to update their social media and their websites on a pretty regular basis.
Right, they do. And especially, now more than ever, everyone is on social media. Everyone is having a website. So while in the past you could get away with posting, maybe once or twice a week, now you have to update those social media platforms almost daily, for some industries, multiple times a day, to make sure your audience stays active, because the online world is getting a little crowded. It's still very effective, but you just have to spend more time and resources into those outlets, and make sure you're staying engaged with your customers, and especially those, superstars who always like and share your posts.
Hootsuite can become your good friend during this time.
Yes.
And with that, so you talked about Berkeley Bucks. Tell us about the winter scavenger hunt going on.
Yes, so we've actually had several different scavenger hunts throughout the pandemic. We have our winter themed one. It is going from now until February 1st. And it's just a fun way for people to explore downtown Berkeley. There are a variety of different clues that you can complete. You have to complete at least 6 of them. Some of them include, shopping or dining at a business. Other, it's simply just, exploring the area, taking a selfie in front of our Santa, just different fun things. And with this promotion, we basically just want to drive people to downtown Berkeley in a safe way. It actually started on December 1st. So there was plenty of time for families to come explore at their convenience when they feel safe. We didn't want a huge influx of people into the city, of course, given the pandemic. So this was a fun, flexible way for us to promote Berkeley. And with that scavenger hunt, the first 3 people to complete it will actually win $50 in downtown Berkeley bucks. So we have a few more spots open. So I would suggest you take advantage and come to downtown Berkeley and complete our scavenger hunt.
And Berkeley is a very fun, small, walkable community.
Yes, it is. It's very walkable. Even though our downtown is both 12 Mile and Coolidge, so it's an L shape, but it's very walkable. And also right now, a lot of our businesses have holiday decorations still up, so you can still kind of get that festive mood while you're walking around, and it's a fun, cute community.
How big of a challenge has this been for you and members of your team to come up with some of these new creative, fun things to do to try to get people to continue to come into the city?
Luckily, I've been able to partner with the chamber and some other Main Street managers in the area. We meet monthly, and we have a really great creative brainstorming session. So a lot of these ideas I will either see from other communities and just kind of tweak for it to fit Berkeley, or they'll share something and I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. We should do something similar. We should do this for Berkeley. So luckily, I'm able to, have a creative brainstorming session with others to come up with these great ideas. I also have a marketing team who is beyond creative, and they are always thinking of new promotions and new events and how we can promote our downtown businesses. So we have a great group with endless creative ideas.
Jennifer, just another minute or two here with you on the Oakland County Megacast. Before we go, anything we didn't touch on that you want to share with the public, or even, again, some of the top stores maybe that people don't realize are there in Berkeley?
Sure. So like you mentioned, we are home to a variety of small businesses. We have, salons, we have gyms, we have a lot of great restaurants, again, many of whom who have outdoor seating. We also have a bunch of different merchants. So we have some merchants who are more artsy. We have fashion boutiques. We really have business or a merchant for anyone. So I recommend come out to Berkeley, visit our shops. You definitely won't be disappointed.
And so the big push, obviously, before the holiday was to get those unique gifts. What's the big push in January and February, the slow months?
We're basically just pushing shop local.
It's so important during this time. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for being with us here on the Megacast.
Thank you.
And again, quickly before we let you go, what exact areas are we talking about when we talk about downtown Berkeley for those that maybe haven't been there or haven't been there in a few years?
Sure. So one of our main streets is 12 Mile between Coolidge and Greenfield. And then our other main street is Coolidge Highway between 12 Mile and 11 Mile.
Well, thank you so much again for being with us. We so appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jennifer Finney with us. She's the executive director for the Berkeley Downtown Development Authority. A great place to go shop. And again, shop local, even if it's not Berkeley, anywhere where you live. The big box stores, they're going to survive this crisis. I was in Target and Menards, and there's always a line. They are going to survive and be perfectly okay, but we really need to support some of these small businesses, especially right now at this time. Tyler, what's your favorite small business?
I don't have a specific one that I would say is my favorite. Not off the top of my head. I have to do some thinking about that. But we definitely should be supporting our small businesses even after the holidays have passed. I know a lot of people put their support into small businesses during the holiday season, and that's great. But that momentum will slowly, gradually go away, and these businesses need our help more than ever right now during the pandemic to continue to survive so that afterward they can still be operating and still be staples of our communities here in southeastern Michigan and Oakland County all throughout the state and all throughout the country.
Yeah, because even 10 months into it, if they've survived up to this point, we are going into the harsh winter months where typically it is a little bit slower for some of these businesses outside of the pandemic, and it could be even worse and be the difference between keeping their doors open and keeping their doors closed. So support local. We want to say thank you again to everyone for tuning in to the Wednesday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. We'll be back here again tomorrow starting at 10 a.m. with another exciting show of the Oakland County Megacast. And again, you can check us out on civiccentertv.com. This has been the Megacast.